panelists. Today we are privileged to have CPA Anthony Kitongo, who's going to share with us some thoughts, a lot of thoughts about budgeting and budgetary control. And also on the same topic, we have another panelist, Monica Kasirye Kavuma, CPA Monica Kasirye Kavuma, who will also be discussing the same topic. I want to welcome all the people who have joined us today. Thank you very much. CPAs, students of CPA, all the friends of CPA, Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Uganda. Ladies and gentlemen, you're all welcome, and whoever has joined, even from other professions. One thing we need to note is that budgeting is a very, very important subject. It's a very, very important thing in our lives. You need budgeting skills, even in your own home. You certainly need to have skills to do the budgeting at home, at work, and in every aspect of life. So this topic has really been very, very timely. So I think we're ready to start going. I would like to introduce to you CPA Anthony Kitongo. He's an astute and value-oriented chartered management accountant with more than 15 years experience across East African region. He's passionate about developing young accountants through in-house training and is an avid reader of Mindset Awakening Development. He has worked in a number of public and private institutions, including Umeme Limited, Hima Cement, and currently is with SteadFin, SACCO as head of finance and investments. Anthony holds a Bachelor of Commerce from the University of Nairobi and a master's degree in public infrastructure management from Makerere University. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together to welcome Anthony. Anthony, you're welcome to the floor.
Thank you, James, for that wonderful introduction. Fellow CPAs, ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to today's webinar. And first and foremost, I would like to express my gratitude to the Institute for continuing this noble cause of having CPAs engaged and for providing opportunity for knowledge sharing. So today we'll be looking at budgeting and budgeting control, and more so in perspective in light of the COVID-19 developments. I have a brief presentation that I will share with you participants. I know most of you know this subject very well, and as the moderator did mention, budgeting cuts across, whether it is at household level or at corporate level. So it's a universal kind of aspect that touches on all organizations. So without further ado, I will dive right into the presentation, and I hope you're gonna enjoy it. To start off, I'll say, okay, right to the introduction. At the onset of this pandemic, I think we started getting information about COVID-19 earlier in the year from January. But back home here, I think from the 20th of March and thereafter, it became a reality to us that COVID is a reality. And more so when the lockdown was effected and virtually all activities came to a standstill, then the reality dawned onto us. And for many of us in the profession, in the accounting field, this really set a new dynamic. I know in many of organizations, we had to do the forecasting, the earlier budgets, basically the assumptions went, new assumptions set in. So budgeting really in a broader perspective as a planning activity, we normally look at resource mobilization and utilization, and the time periods run for 12 months, or in some instances up to 36 months. And budgets are meant to do allocation of resources to achieve optimality, and also to provide a basis for performance measurement, and also for decision making, to ensure that the organizations, what the strategies they aspire to execute implemented. And COVID has really changed that. The budgeting pillars of certainty that we are used to have really changed, and because of the unpredictability that has come in, the budgeting process has shifted now, calling in more for more agility, and also to take cognizance that we are in a new norm. What I will be presenting really are broader aspects. I know we have all the mechanics, all the tools, but what is important is for us to recognize that the external environment has changed, and issues of change. Now we are in a more volatile environment. So when this pandemic set in, the direct impacts to organizations from the lockdown, you have seen that many organizations experience drastic falls in revenues. Some actually from the revenues fell below zero. If you look at airlines, organizations involved in tourism, really the impact has been very drastic. Strained cash flows, and the operational costs are really unsustainable and become uncertain, and profitability has fallen to zero to negative. So you can imagine the impact to organizations, and very few sectors really continue to operate, especially those ones really dealing with survival, providing survival commodities, the basic needs. So organizations now have to get to a survival mode, and many respond in several ways. Some have scaled down operations, some have really had job cuts, and some have been forced out of business, and others have filed for bankruptcy. Corporates like Hertz, popular with rent-a-car cars, their slogan, have been forced to file for bankruptcy. And Nissan had quite a number of job cuts in Spain, Emirates. The aviation industry has really been impacted in a more severe way. There's so many, even back home here, we know from our news channels, there are many organizations that have had to do layoffs. Others have just had to have really employees on forced leaves. Some businesses have really been forced out. So it's really a sad reality that within a period of less than 6 months, organizations have really had to get onto a different platform. So back to today's key topic of the key considerations during such difficult times. First and foremost, organizations have to redefine their business models. And from the previous slide, all those actions of job cuts, closures, I'm sure have been informed by the financial projections and budgets. I think most of these organizations have been driven from a financial perspective. So the first aspect is to redefine the business model. And one key issue is that organizations have to switch from a growth to a survival mode. At the beginning of the year, I'm sure For us, many of us are these wonderful, very optimistic budgeting estimates, projections, and forecasts. But now those have to be changed, and I'm sure a lot of reforecasting has been done for the last 3 months. Accountants have been the busiest because boards and senior management teams calling for revised projections in light of the current happenings. Information flow, the flow of information now, it's no longer a luxury that you have to report at the end of the month, at the end of the quarter. Reporting actually is almost on a daily basis that updates have to be done and decisions have to be taken. So, and in light of all this, what is very critical is that speed, ability to make decisions on time and to react on within a shorter spans of time is very key. There are also opportunities that are coming up that the organizations, when they do a review and a revision of their business model, they can refocus their resources to take advantage where demand is emerging. That calls in to explore alternative revenue streams. If an organization has been probably into manufacturing and they can change, have a setup change to churn out products that are on demand, that is very key. And most important, that organizations have to adopt a new mindset when we experience such kind of situations that bring the global economy to a standstill. The yesteryears kind of beliefs have to change, and what COVID has brought to many of us. If you look at the economic model, where if price is high, demand is zero, they used to sound really to be quite unrealistic. But with this pandemic, most of these old models have come to light. So really organizational mindset change, and this involves really engaging employees, reviewing processes, and it's a total turnaround. So ladies and gentlemen, the most critical aspect is that it's not business as usual. The business model has to be reviewed. Activities that are relevant have to be retained. Those that don't add value have to be really done with. So budgeting really has to be based on the survival. What priority activities does an organization need? And even if it is in terms of capital investment, questions have to be asked. Are they really necessary? Can they wait? So that is the kind of situation we are into. So the second aspect is really budgeting us also to leverage innovation and technology. What the pandemic has brought forth that we need to make use of technology. Just before this, I know of some organizations where use of online banking, especially at the SME level, many SMEs were really reluctant. There was really preference for checks. But right now, I think the uptake of online banking has really gone up, and these were technologies that were readily available, but were not making good use of them. So this is the time really, even when we do budgets, we need to see which technologies we can leverage on and which kind of innovations can we pursue. And innovations really, by this I mean, these have to be gradual. It doesn't have to be a really transformative, but it can be a gradual, just looking at what are the new ways of doing things based on a low cost optimization. And also activities that want to really add value. This is the time really to stay off that. And I've just shared a few whatever examples there. Now we are using Zoom for this meeting instead of being in a conference somewhere in an hotel. And also there's so many, I couldn't really list them here, whether it is in terms of ordering, delivery, you know them. So this is a time really to leverage, develop new apps that can really make your business stay afloat. and also make use of cloud-based applications, whether you are moving your systems to the cloud or there's anything new you're getting from there. So it's really, technology is gonna really drive our budgets in the new norm. This next attribute is to do with government support. During such times, really, as we look into budgeting, we need also to take to be alert what government is offering, whether it's in terms of bailouts, in terms of free advisory services. I think 1 month ago, the Public Sector Foundation had a very engaging kind of an e-conference, and also we had a lot from there, what they're doing. And also I know from the tax administration, URA has been giving a bit of tax deferrals in terms of time periods to file taxes, and also many others. I think we need to be on the lookout for any government support that we can embed into our budgets. The next aspect is looking at the global trends. We need to glean insights from what is happening globally, and because this is not, this pandemic, what makes it unique, it has impacted the entire world, and the developments in one region of the world will definitely impact another. So for us within the Eastern African region, especially for Uganda as a landlocked country, I think this is where now, when we are looking at the supply chains, what materials can we get locally in terms of material substitution for those really into the manufacturing sector, and even for those who have been into other sectors. This presents also an opportunity to tap into those sectors that present immediate opportunities. So it's time really, we have to be very, the finance managers, when we're looking at strategy, operating plans, looking at all these aspects, looking at if you've been into the aviation and tourism segments, looking at what is the new dynamic you can tap onto. If being dependent onto foreign tourists coming in, is it a time to tap onto domestic tourism as when conditions ease out? So such kind of considerations, and also looking at the anticipated economic growth. I think within East Africa, this is one of the regions, I think from the recent World Bank report, that we might have some growth, not really a contraction. So that kind of data gives us where to really focus the resources that we have at our disposal at such a time, and also to guide the organizations more, to remain more focused. So I think also, to sum it up, I think what is important is also to not to panic, to stay off fear, because once panic strikes, everything goes amiss. So at such a times when there are very tough conditions, I think it's more to remain more calm, and also to have everyone really at their best, explore the aspects of providing opportunities for people to present their ideas, and organizations should also embrace a multi-flow of information, not only top-down, it has to be bottom-up, directional, and also collaborative, working with other businesses. So this brings to an end to my presentation, and thank you for your active participation.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Anthony, for that very, very enlightening presentation. I'm sure that the participants are picking up a lot of things. And I want to mention to the participants that if you have a question, please put it on the Q&A section. Try not to put it on the chat, because there are so many things on the chat, including greetings and pleasantries. So put your questions on the Q&A section, And I'm sure that I'll also ask the panelists to be peeping into the Q&A section, and maybe also check the chat for any stray question which might go to the chat. I'm sure you'll agree with me that Anton has given us a very good insight into what's happening, especially under the pandemic and the COVID-19 pandemic. He has taken us through the impacts. You've seen issues around declining revenues for most organizations, for most companies, strained cash flows also becoming a problem. In fact, some companies now filing for bankruptcy. Some have really closed. Others are in zero or negative profitability. So it's quite a tough period. But of course, life has to continue, and the rest of us have to know what to do, especially when it comes to revising your budgets and keeping within what is priority expenditure during this period. He has informed us that in some cases you might have to delay some capital expenditure unless it is extremely useful. Urgent. Of course, we also have to be scanning the environment for the technology, innovation and technology. There could be things we can take advantage of, like these online platforms. Most of the organizations, including mine, Jim Roberts and Associates, who have now gone, most of our work is done online, on, online platforms. So this is something that you need to be aware of. For those who are tax advisors, you need to advise your clients about opportunities given by government, even for delayed tax returns and so on. These are things you need to be aware of. You need to be scanning the environment for what the organization can do in terms of what are those things that maybe you can change if you're in manufacturing. Maybe this is the time to start thinking of, producing sanitizers, producing masks, and things like that, equipment which can help us to fight the pandemic. So thank you very much, Anthony. That has been very, very enlightening. And I would like at this point to introduce our next speaker. Monica, you're welcome. Monica Kasirye Kavuma is a certified public accountant. She's a qualified finance and accounting professional with over 15 years work experience, spanning across audit and advisory with PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, financial management services, telecoms, and currently she's working with PayGo Solar Sector. Monica is currently head of finance at M-KOPA. At M-KOPA, where she's overseeing the finance, procurement, and logistics, tax and treasury operations, as well as external affairs. She also serves as treasurer of the board of Uganda Solar Energy, a body that's charged with lobbying for favorable government policy and providing an enabling environment for the PayGo solar sector. She's also been a mentor with SCC and Enterprise Uganda, where she's been doing a lot of work to develop the youth and giving them skills. She's a certified mentor with Princess Youth Business International Global Network. She's done a lot about finance, entrepreneurship, smart investing for individuals. She's a passionate environmentalist and promoter of sustainable ways of living at the household level. Away from office, Monica loves traveling, exploring interesting food recipes, and of course, spending time with family. Thank you very much, Monica, for honoring the invitation from the Institute. You're welcome to talk to the webinar participants. Over to you, Monica. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, James. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much, James and Anthony, for the CPA Anthony, for the wonderful presentation you made. I would like to also thank CPA Uganda for this opportunity to bring together over 400 accountants in one space, in one room, the new norm, as we share insights on how our budgeting will be affected post-COVID. So Anthony did a good job giving us the background of, the whole breadth of budgeting. Mine is going to be kind of a reflection on what opportunities lie in this COVID pandemic and how will that impact on our budgeting going forward. So 2019, Q4, most of us in this room or on this webinar were busy finalizing our 2020 budgets, making sure that we have the best numbers to present to the boards and that, the boards sign them off as we are showing growth from strength to strength. Come 2020, Q1, everything kind of fell apart. And obviously at that point in time, we could not throw fingers as to who did not do a budget properly or the assumptions were not right. Because unless I'm wrong, if there's anyone who can tell us that their budget is still on point, that they had actually factored in the worst scenario of a pandemic, you correct me. But majority of people in this webinar did the best budget that they could based on the information that we have. And come January 2020, everything was different. So what is a budget from my point of view? I would like to think that a budget is really a reflection of an organization's priorities. These are the things we're going to focus on, and how do accountants put this into numbers. And also given the fact that right now, most of our budgets have been 12 months ahead of time, and right now we cannot control anything beyond 3 months, we have to keep reforecasting. It just basically means that as management, as accountants, we have to be at the forefront as we keep refining these budgets or these tools, because now it's a tool that's going to help us achieve what we want. COVID-19 has presented something different. How do we use this tool to make up to the minute decisions? So obviously, Anthony has talked about the importance of organizations to be very cautious and get into survival mode. Mine is going to be kind of a challenge to the people on this webinar. While everyone is being cautious and everyone is trying not to spend because we don't know where the revenues are going to come from, I want to pose a question. Is this really the best thing to do? Remember, this pandemic is unprecedented, but we've had we've had 2 events, world events, where the world was brought to its knees. And that is World War I and World War II. And after the world wars, things actually changed. We had the Industrial Revolution. So things were not done the way they were before the world wars. So let's consider this as World War III. This is World War III. The world is on its knees. Are we going to keep quiet and shy away? Or are we going to look at the opportunity that lies within the pandemic and re-strategize and redefine our business models? So join me, ladies and gentlemen, as I share with you some opportunities that we may be able to find in this pandemic and move our organizations from strength to strength. Story number 1, every cloud has a silver lining. In this day of the pandemic, social distancing has become the norm. Restaurants cannot have full capacity, yet they're actually paying rent for full capacity. What does that mean? Is there a window that we can exploit to bridge this physical gap? Yes, there is. I would like to give an example of one of our homegrown franchises, Cafe Javas. I'm sure everyone knows Cafe Javas. So pre-COVID, Cafe Javas literally had limited seating capacity. You would find most of these, the different Cafe Javas really, really packed, and people are waiting to have their best meal in the best ambience around town. COVID comes and there's all this social distancing that has to be observed. Otherwise, your restaurant will be closed. What does Cafe Javas do? So yes, they're still open, but now the capacity is at half. It's half than what it used to be, meaning that if they continue doing that, they're going to have the same level of expenses, but at reduced revenues. Have they increased their meals? No, they haven't. Yeah. What have they done differently? They may have cut down some of their waiters because the people coming into the restaurants are fewer. But again, they've scaled up on their delivery. They've reinvented their business model to make sure that they still deliver the tasty meals to people's dining rooms, but in another way. So I'm sure our accountants on this webinar will resonate with me. It didn't mean that they had to cut their budgets. No, it meant that they had to be creative. Yes, they may have to lay off some waiters because they don't need as many as they needed pre-COVID for the maximum seating capacity. But now the fact that they have to spend more dollars advertising their delivery business model, and also employing more and more delivery boys who are able to take this food right at your doorstep. So that is one example that I would like to share with you in terms of even in a place where we're facing difficulties or challenges, let's look for that cloud and reinvent our businesses. Because after this COVID-19, things should not be normal. The new normal should start now, and we should be planning to scale this new normal. The second lesson that I would like to share with you, ladies and gentlemen, is that on having a growth mindset as opposed to having a fixed mindset. What do I mean? In every adversity, there's an opportunity. As I drive from my home to town, I see a lot of food in the markets. Before COVID started, Ugandans were very worried about scarcity of food because we knew that our borders were going to close. We knew that because people are not working, production will stop. But because food is an essential service, that was left to continue operating. So what happened? Borders were closed, we were no longer exporting. So all of a sudden, you can get a big bunch of matoke at only 8,000 Uganda shillings. But what does that really mean for anyone in the farming sector? It just means that a farmer spent 2 years only to get 8,000 Uganda shillings. For me, I look at this as an opportunity to think value addition in the farming sector. What can we do? We're talking about Bubu all the time. Buy Uganda, build Uganda. But maybe therein lies an opportunity to actually think through what value addition means. Is it a time for us to start expanding our commodities market where we can lock in long-term with farmers? Yeah, buy today at 8,000 and lock this price in for the next 5 years. If I'm a processor, maybe this is the time for food processing industries to flourish because there's so much food on the market and farmers are losing out. But should they really lose out? Or can we do some value addition and extend the shelf life of these products? There's also another opportunity in all this. Distribution. In Central here, yes, we have an overflow of food, and food is being wasted. People are getting peanuts for the food after the hard-earned work. But we have people in Northern Uganda or in Eastern Uganda who are not as blessed as we are here in the Central. Is there an opportunity for farms, distribution farms, to start the distribution process and make sure that food actually reaches in the eastern part of Uganda or the northern part of Uganda? Uganda is a food basket, it has always been said. We should not have people going hungry or starving to death when there's an abundance of food in one region. So let's look around. There are many opportunities as problems around us. In this webinar, I've seen we're around 400 people, and all of us are thinking we have so many problems. But then that means there are so many opportunities that we can expound and turn this COVID pandemic into something that will help us flourish, yeah, from this day forward. The third lesson I would like to share is digital is a new normal. And again, CPA Anthony talked about this, but what does it actually mean? Pre-COVID, we had issues of internet connectivity, whereby internet is very, very expensive to reach offices or homes or people's homes. But after, during this pandemic period, we have no option but to work from home. I'm working from home, and I'm sure you can hear me clearly. What has that meant for the telecom companies? For those, we've seen quite a number of competitors coming into this space, but even for those who have been there before, this is an opportunity to scale and make sure that there is proper connectivity in each and every home, because we don't know where this COVID pandemic will go, but we know that indeed the ways of working have changed. And if people can stay where they are and do their work productively, there's an opportunity for those in telco who are offering those services. How prepared are we to take that on? That's a challenge. And even for organizations that are not in telco, we've seen that now meetings are organized online. What does that mean when we're doing our budgets going forward? Must we have workshops and physical meetings and transport allowance and all these things? These are things we should be thinking about, yeah? Because less time is spent, there's more productivity, and if everyone has stable internet where they are, we get more done. So these are considerations even when we're doing a 2021 budgeting exercise, yeah? What are these things we've been budgeting for that actually we can cut out, but yet continue to deliver the bottom line for the organizations we work for? COVID has presented another challenge. People actually fear money, and the central bank has been challenging institutions to take on digital currencies. How ready are we to embrace the e-currency? This is an opportunity unexploited, but remember the days when mobile money had just come in, there was a lot of resistance. But now it's become part of the DNA of our operations. So can we push the envelope a bit further and see where this threat to paper money, yeah, can turn into an opportunity to develop and expound on our e-currency opportunities? There's an opportunity there. What does it mean for accountants? Are we ready for this kind of revolution? Physical versus digital transactions. I've talked about that in this norm of social distancing. Markets are closed, arcades are closed, but trade must go on. How are our organizations facilitating trade? Are we leveraging on the digital platforms that they are? Because we see in these times, the people that are making money, Zoom is making a lot of money. Having all of us 400 people on this platform is something that they never envisaged. But there's so many meetings going on at this time. What does that mean for that accounting firm, yeah, to build into new ways of new items in our budget and take out things which actually do not add much value to the business? So how ready are you? When COVID-19 goes, will you be stronger? Will you be more competent to stand up to the challenges that the world presents? Because we know for sure we're not going back to our pre-COVID days. Okay, the other lesson that I wanted to share with you ladies and gentlemen is the old cliche: people are our greatest asset. Or are they? That's a question everyone should be asking themselves. At the beginning of March, when the lockdown was beginning to bite, many organizations rushed to terminate employees because there was so much uncertainty ahead. We understand the panic mode that everyone was operating in. But let's ask ourselves, when we're saying people are our greatest assets, are we actually walking the talk? How are we treating our employees in this very difficult time? Because we know that once the storm subsides, we'll still go back to our employees to deliver the bottom line for the organizations. I would think that, that as we're looking at our budgets and we're seeing all these impacts of revenue shortfall, we should not touch employees unless it's absolutely critical. Yeah. Start with things like office space. People have been working from home for 3 months, 4 months. Do you need that office space? What are the other things which are non-people related that you can touch before you actually go to people? Because you're building an organization, a sustainable organization, and when the storm subsides, you will still need your talent. So this is the time for you to show your talent, your value proposition. Why should they stick with you and not go for greener pastures? I'll give an example of what we've done at our workplace, hopefully to inspire some of you. We have over 1,000 agents that earn a daily income when they sell. So when the lockdown started, these people did not have any source of livelihood. But we also know that the company exists because of these sales agents who go day by day selling our products. So what did our senior management do? Our senior management decided to forfeit 10% of their monthly pay on a daily for the rest of the year to make sure that the livelihood of our most treasured sales agents is protected. Think about what that does to the salesperson. And accountants, I challenge you, this does not actually increase the budget spend, but maintains it. What creative ways can we use to ensure that our greatest assets indeed remains motivated and engaged? What mental health assistance are we giving our employees? Working from home is something that people are not used to. What are we doing about it as an organization? This is the time to actually spend more on the engagement budget to make sure that we retain our most treasured assets as organizations. There's so many continuous learning opportunities out there, so many free resources. Are we disseminating them to our employees? This does not come at any additional budget, but actually we're just sharpening the sword for our employees such that by the time COVID-19 pandemic subsides, they actually come back stronger and more rejuvenated to take the organization to the next level. Are we communicating regularly? With so much going on, the onus is on us, accountants in this room, to communicate what the numbers mean. What do we need to do to change the picture? Because if we leave things ambiguous, everyone will deduce what they want to deduce. So we need to step up our communication. And Anthony said that yes, those days would review financials after a month, yeah, in the pre-COVID days. But now it's got to be daily updates. What does this mean? I've got this new information. This is what it means, and this is how it's going to impact our bottom line going forward. So my favorite quote here is, I've learned that people will forget what you said. They'll forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. So let's make it a point to make our most treasured assets very engaged in this period, because we'll need them when we get back to running full speed. So what does this all mean for accountants in this room? For us to be able to change our value proposition at our workplaces, we need to actually develop a growth mindset and keep moving. Keep moving. Gone are the days when we do our budgets for, and keep reporting how the business has not met budget. Now we know that the business will not meet budget because we don't even know what's going to happen in the next 3 months or next 6 months. But how are we repurposing the budget to make sure that we get maximum value from what is available? We need to do more business partnering. The more we engage with the different sections of the business, the more we understand their pain points, the more we're able to advise on ways to be more efficient in resource allocation, and the more we get buy-in from the different departments, because usually we are branded as Mr. No or Mrs. No, that whatever will come to us, it's a no, we don't want to spend. But let's get into the shoes of the people we serve. If we understand their pain, then we'll be able to serve them properly. Let's be creative. Let's incentivize ingenious ideas. Right now, we need all hands on deck. No one has been faced with this pandemic before. And every information that we get keeps changing the budget. So let's throw it out there. Let's engage everyone to put on their thinking hats, their creative hats, on how we can steer clear of this storm. Again, as we go into 2022, 2021 budgeting, let's adapt scenario planning tools to test the possible and likely outcomes. What's the bad? Let's paint a bad scenario, an ugly scenario, and a good scenario. Because like I said, the timeline we have is so uncertain. We don't know what will happen in 3 months. Will the vaccine be received? You know, shall we be going back to the offices as normal? We don't know that. So let's try and have a dynamic planning tool that we will consider all those various scenarios, because then that helps management know what to do when we hit a bad scenario, an ugly scenario, or a good scenario. Let's embrace data. Not so long ago, data became the most valuable item on the world market, even more than oil. We saw at the beginning of the pandemic, the oil prices really went down. They were negative, but data is the new oil. So how are we using data? How are we mining data to make information that's good for making forward-looking decisions? So I would like to end there and call on fellow accountants in this room to develop a forward-looking mindset and be more engaged in the way we handle our budgeting cycles. Let's reduce these budgeting cycles from months to weeks to allow for dynamism, considering that right now we are getting information on a daily basis. So we can no longer afford to have a 12 months outlook. We'll have it, but let's maintain the short-term outlook as well to help our managers, to help our CEOs, to help our organizations really survive these uncertain times. Thank you very much, and welcome questions.
Wow, thank you very much, Monica. That has really been very, very, very informative, very educative. I also want to thank our participants. We have over 500 people on the webinar. This has really been very good. I could say unprecedented as well, the word that Monica used, and Anthony. Well, Monica, thank you very much. I've picked a lot from the presentation that you've just made. The discussion has been very, very enlightening. I think you've challenged the accountants, as you said. Let us not, be shy. Let us, even if our budgets have been thrown out of the window in January, after we had printed very nice budget books in December, we still have to take the challenge and take it on and see how we can steer the organizations to not only survival, but to thrive under the pandemic. I'm really very happy about the hints you've given about reviewing the business models. You gave a very good example of Cafe Javas, and I think this is something that all organizations should emulate. Value addition, we really need to think about value addition in agriculture. We have a lot of food in this country, and we produce a lot of food, but we all the food just gets wasted. We eat maybe an eighth or a 10th, and the rest is just poured. We need to start figuring out, what do we do with the matoke? Is there a way we can dry it? Is there a way we can make it into a powder? I was watching a video clip one time in Kenya. They're already making powder, which I think can be used for porridge and ugali or something, which is made from, plantain, the bananas as we know them. So these are the kind of things we should be talking about. Challenges along the digital space, we need to innovate and look at new products in those areas. And of course, I think I really liked it when you talked about the people. And I really want to appreciate the management of M-KOPA for sacrificing the little earnings they also had to make sure that the people who support your business can survive through the pandemic. I think this is an example that most of us should really emulate. And of course, you mentioned a lot of things. We should have a growth mindset. Data analytics, relies so much on information and data-driven decision making, and also making sure we can refine our budgets as we go along, probably on a weekly basis or so. So these are really great insights, and I want to thank you, Monica. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you to both presenters. I think I've been seeing some hands, but as I said, I was not giving people to answer the questions at that point. We're now going to go to the question and answer session. And if I may ask Anthony, have you picked any questions that you think might be directed to you particularly on the Q&A section?
Yes, James, I've picked one or two questions.
Okay. Yes, you can first go through those, and then I will also, there are people who raised up their hands. I will also ask them after.
Okay,
yeah, there are
thank
people
you.
who raised, yeah, there are people who raised up their hands. I will also ask them to ask the question. Thank you.
All right. I will respond to the first two, one by Apollo. And the question was how to deal with uncertainty and risk management at such periods. Thank you, Apollo, for that. I think the message we have shared is that, first of all, is to acknowledge that we are in a very different time period, and also to embrace an aspect to deal with. We need to review our business operations, review the business model, and the CPA Monica brought a very good aspect. We need to move from a fixed to a growth mindset. So I think really at such times, really to deal with risk and uncertainty, it calls to be proactive and to embrace the aspects of agility because most of these issues will not be resolved just by looking at them, but they need action. That's what I can, that's my take. And CPA Razek, the question was, should companies start budgeting for calamities and uncertainties? My answer is yes. They should have started it like yesterday because what I mentioned in my presentation was that within a short period of less than 6 months, we get companies filing for bankruptcy, others exiting the businesses. So this really calls that budgeting for these and also having robust business continuity plans is really very vital. So it's a new normal. We need to get back to those aspects that I know we did study these in one point during the qualification, that you need to factor uncertainty, build up, set aside funds that if things don't go well. So I think it's really time to relook at the entire planning architecture, building scenarios, and also bring in the key accounting concept of being conservative into the scenario whenever we do and plan for businesses. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anthony. Monica, have you been able to pick up some questions?
Yes, I have.
Yes, please
I
go
have.
ahead.
There's one here which talks about, can you hear me? Kindly advise members on how remote working and working in shifts can be used to cut down budget expenditure as well as keeping staff levels low in the current COVID times. Yeah. So I'll share something that I had from HR webinar, where right now we're used to compensating based on time, on whether you've worked productively or not. people are paid a flat salary for the month. But I want us to look at how gig employees are paid, people in the arts industry, yeah, where they're paid as for the time, for the input, yeah, time invested in the job. So what I see as the emerging trend in this is this whole thing of fixed monthly pay is going to go away, and it will become a productivity-based remuneration. What that does for someone is that if someone is good, they can increase their earning potential. So they devote time to M-KOPA and say, I'll be able to devote 4 days a week, and then I'll find my other day of the week to do something else. So it's good for that. It may actually turn out to be better for the employee, and of course, good for the employer, because then it's more variable than fixed. James?
Yes, please. Yeah, you are through?
Yes, I'm looking at the other questions, unless there's one specifically to me. Okay.
Okay, maybe, can I, meanwhile, as you pick up the questions, can I ask, there are people who put up their hands. I want to see what they might be having to say. Can we have David Sandy Kayanja? Can you unmute your microphone and ask your question? David Kayanja? Hello? Hello? David, are you there? Okay, let's hear from Davis Biabamazima. Ambrose, can you help us to unmute them if you can?
Okay, sir.
Yeah. We had David Kayanja and then Davis Biamamazima.
So there's a question on the chat.
Okay. Yeah, you can answer that as
food now? Yeah. Why is there more food now than before? Will the food production continue or not? Is locking in prices now justifiable? So we know that food is an essential. Rich, poor, sick, healthy, all of us need food. So food is an essential. And right now it's a thing of save me today, I'll save you tomorrow. If let's say I had a wine processing plant, these plants use a lot of ripe bananas, right, matoke. So it does not hurt for me to go to someone who has acres and acres of matoke and buy that matoke at 8,000, process it to increase its shelf life. And when prices are higher, I'll also be able, I would have locked in a price. Yeah, so right now I may be, I'll be buying lower, but even when the prices go up, it's a beneficial arrangement. Yeah. What we're seeing now, the farmers are really suffering, yet we know that food is here to stay. We all need food. So it's really a thing of what opportunities do we see around there to make a win-win situation for all of us.
Okay, thank you very much. And then maybe I think what Monica is saying is that the processor may not give the 8,000 only at this point. He can accept maybe to give 12,000, but lock it for a longer period. So for the farmer, the farmer will also get, you know, hedged in that process. So it will be a win-win for both of them. Thank you very much, Monica, for that. Ambrose, can you now unlock somebody to ask a question? Hello?
Yes, sir. We have unmuted them. All people are putting up their hands.
Yes, if your hand is up, please can you go ahead and ask your question. David Kayanja, can you ask your question? Okay, Patrick Adotu, can you ask your question? Patrick Adotu?
I have another question here. Can I ask
Yes.
it?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Question for Mr. Twaha Kawase.
Yes.
My lecturer. So thank you. I agree on the need to think people. However, how do you balance people first versus a need to digitize or automate operations, which could easily lead to job losses? That's a very good question, Mr. Kawase. I want to separate these two things. I think right now the question at hand is how do we deal with this COVID pandemic to have the least blow to the people who have helped build our organizations. So instead of rushing fast to cut down staff, what can we do? That may be the ultimate decision, but let's demonstrate that we're actually doing something to protect them as much as possible. And if it's digitalization, automation has always been an ongoing conversation. In fact, we know that accountants, it's one of the roles that is earmarked for extinction because of automation. But I've talked about things like creativity. Yeah. Artificial intelligence will never be creative in the way that, it allocates resources. Accountants will still be needed to put that, that creativity in how best can we reallocate the resources. So yes, the mundane tasks will go, but it's an opportunity for us now to upskill and get better competencies, big data analysis, grow our analytics skill set so that we can complement the automation that we want to put in place. I don't know if that kind of answers the question.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think that I want to believe that Professor Kawase is happy with that. Ambrose, can we have somebody coming through from the floor? Samuel Okurapa, can you ask your question? Hello? I see hands up, but yes, please. Ask your question, Crispus.
Yes, sir. Thank you. This is Crispus.
You're welcome. Go ahead with your question.
Yeah, I would like to align us the issue of insurance. Do you think it is the right time that insurance companies should also look into such kind of situations as pandemics? Also, because it may not be easy for companies maybe to set up a reserve fund for such kind of contingent situations. And maybe also insurance companies to focus more on agriculture, because previously it has been left behind, like insuring against seasons when there is bad luck, something like that. In general, I would really like to know where is the insurance's role in this kind of play. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, excuse me, we can allow also Barbara. Generally,
yes.
All of them are able. Then
yeah, let's take the questions. Let's take the question, then the panelists will come in. Yes, who's going next, Barbara?
Yes, sir, Barbara.
Hello, can you ask your question? Hello? Hello, can you ask your questions?
Chair, we may proceed. It seems they erroneously put up their hands.
Okay, it could be by error. Yes, so Anthony, do you want to give a go at that question about insurance?
Yes, James, I will attempt to give some insights. Thank you, Crispus, for bringing that forth. And I think it's really one of those areas that the players in our local insurance market should take a look into. To be honest, I think the pandemic also has brought in new perspectives that players within the financial sector and beyond should be looking at. And I think this presents an opportunity to engage with colleagues within the insurance sector and also the regulator to see what products they can bring forth for organizations. Though also, on another hand, insurance is really to do with risks that the probability of occurrence, the likelihood of occurrence sometimes is very low. So if you look at these like COVID-19, once it's a global, it's declared as a global disaster, then some aspects of insurance or the key principles of insurance, it negates also some critical aspects of insurance, especially the probability of occurrence, because once it's declared global, the probability is already 1, and the losses that result, I don't know if the insurance sector will be able really to service such claims, but something that can be discussed and explored. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Monica, do you have anything to add?
Yes, so it's interesting that this week I was having a talk with one of my insurance brokers, and this question came up. Yeah, the normal way of insuring things should change. Like, we expect more value from our insurance companies. Given the new norm, what are the emerging threats, insurable risks that should be considered, without necessarily actually increasing the budget for companies, but knowing that now things have changed? I mean, with the working from home, what are the new emerging risks coming out of that? How are they going to impact on our budgets going forward if we continue remote working? So that was a challenge I posed to them, and they seem to see that we can no longer insure the things that we're insuring pre-COVID. We need to think differently. Mental health cases are going up. What does that mean? Do we need to slot that in the insurance packages that we're giving? So it's a good question, and I think insurers can no longer hide behind the normal plain vanilla insurable risks. Yeah, they need to be adaptive and also incorporate the global trends, such that the people who are paying the money actually get value from those covers.
Yeah, thank you very much, Monica. And I think the message is very clear. Those of us who are in the accountants who are especially in the insurance industry, you need to take note of this and advise your organizations. I think there's need to be creative, to be innovative, to come up with the products which can address situations like this one. I was, for example, very excited when I saw adverts from Prudential. I have a policy with the Prudential, and I remember when I saw them saying that in the unlikely event that you test positive for COVID-19, we'll be able to cover the cost of your tests, the cost of your, I think, when you are put on maybe the 14 days or so, or medication actually. I thought that was quite good, and I hope that insurance companies could take that kind line of thought and try to support their clients in eventualities like those. Of course, I'm still happy not to test positive, but I mean, if it happened, I knew that Prudential could help to take care of some of the costs. And those are some of the things that insurance companies should really try to come up with very innovative products. So I think that's very good, and it is very, very much encouraged. Are there any other questions coming?
Yes, there's a question on chat from Sophia Chomhendo. My concern is more long-term, especially the education sector that right now hangs in balance. Teachers are being laid off, no salaries in most schools. For schools on digital schooling, government has no consideration for them. What next? So I think my take here, this is something I'm passionate about. I'm seeing people like Microsoft making a lot of money because they've seen an opportunity where schools are not opening, yet children have to go to school. So obviously this is very many miles away, but what can we learn as people who drive policies in this country or who sit at the table? What can we do? Maybe we're the ones who should be able to identify this and make it a viable proposition for government and say, you know what, probably we can have a hybrid. Because what if COVID-19 doesn't go away? What will happen? Yeah. So whereas Microsoft is getting a lot of money, having Microsoft Teams for education services, we pick a leaf and actually do something here? Yeah. So again, it's really a challenge and it's a big thing out there. We don't think, I mean, with internet going into people's homes, this is something, again, accountants and telcos. What can you do to make sure the pricing is right and everyone can access internet in their homes? Then the services that ride on internet can be more accessible. So these are big questions out there, but we should challenge ourselves to think different.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for that. And I think that's very good because actually Microsoft Teams has the solution for remote learning. I was a bit taken aback when some of the parliamentarians were saying that Makerere students or students of higher education, they shouldn't go ahead with the online systems because it will disadvantage some of the students. That wasn't the right way to look at it. The right way would have been, what support can government give to make sure that every student at higher institutions of learning has access to internet, has access to a laptop, so that they are able to access online education even when they are locked down. That would have been the best approach than to say some people are going to get disadvantaged, therefore we should stop everything, and then you are grounded. It doesn't take us anywhere. Instead of maybe thinking about giving a TV to every home or giving for education or giving a radio, maybe we should be thinking of low-cost laptops for students. And I was one time attending a webinar, and the CEO of Airtel was talking about, they are discussing with the universities. They want to come up with a package which would give free access to students from those universities to have access to Airtel data services. If such a deal can be struck with the higher institutions of learning, that would be the way to go. Because you cannot say, let's stop everybody because some will be disadvantaged. We should actually be saying, how do we make sure those who don't have these facilities can have them? Can we talk to telecom companies? Instead of maybe giving 5 brand new pickups, maybe they could have come up with an idea of saying, okay, fine, we shall provide data for students to learn online. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult. So we really need to think differently so that we give opportunities to those who cannot access education services. Because I'm aware, for example, my son studies with the Strathmore Business School in Nairobi, and he's studying from home now. Normally, there's nothing affected other than not being at campus. So that's the kind of model we should be using as Ugandans. So I think it's for us to think differently and see how we can embrace the digital technology, and also how we can expand access so that even that person in the village should be able to access it. And I'm very aware that some of these networks, telecom networks, already have coverage, 4G coverage, deep in the villages. One of the networks I can access 4G, go on Microsoft Teams, on Zoom, right deep in my village in Bukedia. That's what we should be talking about. The investment has been done, but how do you give access in terms of affordability for those who do not have the data to get onto the network? Thank you. Any other question coming up?
Chair, there is a question from Obed.
Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ambrose, and the chair, Monica, and Anthony. Of course, Anthony, were together in HIMA, so I know him well. This is CPA Obed from Obed Associates in Mbarara. I have a question regarding, I want you to share your thoughts. I don't know where it will follow, either to Anthony or Monica, on strategic planning, whereby we have two philosophies or two schools of thought, the strategic planning concept and also the freelance concept. And we know that the budgets really support the strategic planning concept. So with this ever-changing environment, are we buying into the philosophy of freelance, whereby we discard people from forward-looking and they take opportunities as they come? I want you to share your thoughts in that regard. Then secondly, engaging the board in a never-changing budget. How can we engage the board? Because as you change the budgets, ideally you're supposed to be communicating to the board and getting approval. Are we saying we shall be like having operational budgets that are not linked to the board? How are we managing that? Kindly share your thoughts and it will be well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Obed, for that question. Yes, please go ahead. I think it was directed to Anthony.
Thank you, James. The first aspect, I got the aspect of strategic planning linked to budgeting. Then there was an aspect of, I didn't get that very well, but where budgets are discarded.
You called it freelance.
Oh, freelance. Oh, non-budgeting. Yeah. Oh, non-budgeting. Yes. Yeah. All right, great. I think really from the planning and the strategic perspective, really budgets, despite the situations, I think when we started, the moderator ably said budgets are universal, whether it's at household level or at corporate, irrespective of the organization. The risk of really not having budgets, especially in such times, one might be tempted to overlook very critical aspects. So that's where budgets, they could have their limitations, but they do set a starting point, a benchmark on which other improvements can be built onto. They give a starting point. Unlike where you just freelancing, you really don't know where you're gonna go, or even if things get out of the way. So to me personally, I'm a really proponent that there should be a structured approach. Then you can inbuild those other aspects. On the question of board engagement, this was ably addressed by CPA Monica when she she explained the aspects of scenario planning. Because what happens is when you do a budget revision, you are not going with only one scenario to the board. You have to go with a multiple, probably 3 to 4 scenarios, and the board is taken through and they get to know, for instance, if you have a worst case scenario, a best, and then what is achievable. That will really solve the need to have frequent board presentations on the same aspect. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Monica, you have something to add?
No, I totally agree with what Anthony has said. What we present to the board is the roadmap. This is where we want to go. This is where we want to focus. And this is where we want to end up. So this is a good scenario, a bad scenario, and an ugly scenario. Once the board signs that off, how the management deals with it, because you said right now we're dealing with new information every day. Yeah. So the board has already signed off where you want to go, and the caps has already capped where the boundaries within which you should play in. So then the operations are charged with the management to implement as and when they get information. That is all I can add, but yeah, thanks.
Yes, thank you very much. And I also sit on a number of boards. I sit in the board of Citibank, the board of ESCOM, and also the League of East African Directors. Next week, actually, on 24th Friday, I think, we have a webinar which will be addressing the issue of boards which deliver during and beyond COVID. I'll be welcoming most of you to come and attend that webinar for the League of East African Directors. And what I've got through my experience in the boards is that during this COVID period, we've actually had several meetings, more than we've been having in the normal situations. And boards that are supportive, I don't want to preempt what will come in the webinar on Friday next week, but boards which are supportive, you'll find that they will they will always stay close to what the management is doing, and they will be available. We've had a number of Zoom or Microsoft Teams meetings, ad hoc board meetings, just to make sure we're supporting management. Sometimes you've got to make ad hoc decisions. You'll be given new information and you have to endorse or agree or discuss and guide management on which direction you should take. And also normally boards give what they call the delegation of authority within certain limits. If there is a change, management should be allowed, the MD should be allowed to, the executive director should be allowed to sign off within certain limits. So if you have a very supportive board, that will not be a problem because the board will be willing even to have an ad hoc meeting to discuss a particular situation if it demands the attention of the board. So I would welcome some of you, if you get the opportunity, please attend the webinar next week on boards that deliver during and beyond COVID. Thank you. Any other question?
Yeah, Chair, there is a question from Apple, a quote
Yes, please.
to Monica. I believe Monica could have read it. Then,
Yes.
Yeah.
Monica, you talked of the growth mindset in this era. Can you briefly explain the place of budgets as determinants of performance evaluation in this COVID-19 era? What has to change in terms of budgets as performance management tools during this period? That's an interesting one. I guess CPA, Apollo, you're talking about being appraised at the end of this COVID-19 as someone who didn't meet budget because things didn't work out the way they were budgeted. But I would like to re-echo what CPA James said. When you have a supportive board, all these things should be clarified. Now, COVID has come and we have to meet to reshare with the board annual budgets. What that means is that now you're being held accountable to how best you'll execute the new budget that the board has signed off. So it's a moving document. No one will hold you, people should not hold you accountable to the old budget, which was thrown apart by COVID, but on how responsive you have been to create value and show management the direction to take based on new information that you're getting. So for me, if all of us in this room can thrive in this period, I'm sure, the review process will be done. Like if we all thrive and we're able to steer the ship, that means we've been in sync with the boards, communicating new information and advising on what role to take based on the new information. So yeah, it's a moving target. That's why I'm saying it should not be cast in stone, but it should be a rolling stone based on information that you get and how best you translate that information to the benefit of the organization. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Monica. Thank you. Any other question? Ambrose coming?
Yes, maybe the next question from David can go to Anthony. Anthony, are you able to see? David is
David who?
David Seklembeka. It's the last question on the Q&A platform.
Ah, okay, I've seen it. It says, kindly share your thoughts on how accountants should budget for the costs that may arise from cyber risk and information security breaches due to staff working from home while accessing critical data. All right, thank you, David, for that, and for pointing us towards the risk that comes from working from home. And this really, cyber risk and information security costs become really a necessity given the change in work dynamics as we move from brick and mortar to virtual working platforms at home or elsewhere. It really calls again as businesses get to review their costs in terms of what are priority costs. Because such a time, you can have a framework where you have necessary, not necessary. So the costs that will be very vital for the business to continue in operations. And I presume cyber related costs really become very critical because most work now is on the digital platform. So I think really when organizations are doing budget doing budget revisions and refocusing, cyber IT related costs, especially those related to information security, should take a forefront. These are very necessary costs, and I really call upon accountants when you are doing those budgets, you should prioritize such costs. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Monica, you have something to add?
Yeah, so one thing I want to share with fellow accountants is one of the ways you can manage risk is to you either reduce the risk or you transfer the risk. So this is one of the areas which you can open up with insurance companies. Because of the level of magnitude of uncertainty, we know that it's there because of the new way of working, but we cannot ascertain how significant it is. So this is one of the areas you can discuss with the insurers, and obviously it would increase your insurance premium costs, or it may be offset by something else that is no longer a risk because you've stopped working from home. So, you know, it may compensate. Yeah, but definitely a good, something to look into, yeah, based on the new way of working. You can transfer the risk by insuring it.
Yeah, thank you very much, Monica and Anthony, for those submissions. Members, you'll also realize that this is the time now you have to make everybody in your organization conscious about security. For example, I know organizations where people even share passwords. You don't do that under COVID, under COVID pandemic. You shouldn't share passwords. You should not, for example, you should actually make it your systems to switch off if somebody is not using it for maybe 5 minutes or 3 minutes. Actually, for banks, I'm told it's even less than a minute. The moment you get out of the machine for maybe 50 seconds, the system should log out. And when you're coming back, you log in again. So you should be that security conscious. You should also get advice from professionals on which kind of systems to use. For example, you need to choose the right kind of technology which you are going to use. If you are going to work remotely, for example, we expect you to use systems which have a good record of being secure. You remember in the beginning, Zoom had problems. People could, hack into it and cause disruption, but they have since improved. They have since improved their security. And so you have to know if your workers are going to work from home, what kind of platform are they going to use? How do you make that platform secure? And you should make it as difficult as possible for the hackers to actually interrupt. But of course, like Monica said, the risk will always be there. I remember one time some guys wanted, and actually did, hack into the Pentagon. They hacked into the American elections. So a lot of things can happen. We just have to be aware, and we have to educate ourselves to take security measures to make sure our systems are not unnecessarily exposed. Thank you. Any other question?
Chair, let's give another chance to Kayanja, David.
Yes,
Kayanja.
please. Yes, Kayanja, go ahead.
I think his microphone is muted. We can give a chance to Salme. Salme.
That microphone is also muted.
Then Mebra. Then Irule.
Hello.
Yes, David, go ahead. David Kayanja.
Yes. Yeah, David seems to be in other businesses. We may
another chat.
Yes.
So maybe you can remove him and give somebody else the chance.
Yes. We have given it to Salme.
Okay. Yes, Salome, go ahead. Hello, Salome. Salome.
Chair, I see those putting up hands, maybe they did it by mistake. There is a question from Immaculate Mbabazi.
Yes.
It says, since the world over is going digital, what can employees do to make sure they match the new changes and avoiding losing opportunities to automation? Maybe this is another topic for another day, or the panelists can help us to respond.
The panelists should say something as we prepare for another day. Yes, Anthony and Monica.
Okay, thank you. I think my response is it's good always to embrace change. Since the new normal is getting to digital, it will be very prudent if from a personal perspective, there's personal initiative, at least to improve on acquire new skills that can really make one more competitive. And there's always a notion that you are losing to automation, but I think the issue is automation are driven by people, that automation will always be there. Those who are prepared to take advantage of it. And most critically, any of these changes, automation, whether it is machine learning, there are always people behind it. So I think to Immaculate, get onto the boat and tap onto those new skills. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Anthony. Monica?
Yes, so to Immaculate and many others, I know accountants, we've invested so much time in getting the technical skills, and these are quickly being eroded by, the mundane work is being taken off by automation. But one thing I can tell you is we'll still need people to drive the strategy. So the role is not lost. We just need to sharpen our skills and get new skills to complement what we have. Yeah. So let's not get tired of learning every day. And one thing I've also realized is that when you learn these things, you spend less time doing budgets, and spend more time doing interesting things, like being part of the business and driving the change in the business. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Monica. So, as advised, I think Immaculate Mbabazi, thank you for that question, and I'm happy that you were at some point my staff. I'm happy you're out there now. Yeah, so I think the most important thing for accountants is to continue learning. I think that's the only lesson. We have to continue learning. Before COVID, I'm quite sure I had never touched Microsoft Teams. But these days, I'm amazed. My 10-year-old child actually attends the classes using Microsoft Teams. So it gave me a challenge, and I said, maybe I should also learn this thing. And now I can do it. I can use it. I can use it to deliver lectures. I train, I teach at Strathmore Business School. So it's for us to reinvent ourselves and keep learning. And for my belief, accountants will never go out of job so long as you embrace the new technologies, you update yourselves. You've heard of block technology. By now, people like you should be learning about how will you prepare yourself to audit in block technology. So that's I think the way to look at things. We just have to learn the new technologies, be innovative, be creative, and we shall forever remain relevant. Thank you.
And,
any other question, Ambrose?
Yes, CPA James, someone has made a very good comment that maybe this is the time to increase the budget for digital skills, to train our people and upskill them in digital skills. So again, as a budgetary consideration, let's embrace these things. As someone is doing CPA, what else are they learning? Can employers actually fund this or encourage their staff to take on these things? Because we need to embrace these things. Otherwise, we'll get out of action.
Yeah, that is very true. And also, what I realize is that there are a lot of online courses which are free, which can update you. A few years ago, I came across a website called allison.com. It has a lot of freelance, almost all these things we are struggling about, be it in Excel, in PowerPoint, in whatever, Access, various programs. You can actually learn them and they are free. So as organizations, of course, we should budget for that to make sure our staff are continuously upgrading, but also individuals should take that initiative, because
There's a question on the chat. I think we've lost our moderator. Ambrose, can I go on?
Yes, please.
It's saying, many thanks for the insights. However, the topic was attacked from a private sector perspective. Government are thinking otherwise. Government teachers will be paid their salaries without stepping in class. It's a bit of welfare from the state. How best should governments adjust their planning and change management? So what I can say about this is, again, I'm sure the accountants in this webinar who work for the government, this is the time for you to present something different, something strange, because we know that most of these governments take time to adapt because of so many competing demands. But let's be bold. Can you work with CPA Uganda to come up with something that can be the blueprint for the next, the way education policies can be run in this digital era? Again, as an accountant, do the cost-benefit analysis, do the return on investment, and present something that can be critiqued and challenged. It may take years, but you would have done something. Instead of sitting back and waiting for politicians to drive the conversation, what can we do as accountants, knowing that there are all these tools out there? And let's take the bold step and present something to the ministers. Yeah, can we work with CPA to advance this agenda? So that's really what I can say. It's really keep challenging ourselves. And it's because the private sector, there's no time to lie low. You won't get your salary if you don't work. So you have to be thinking. So if we put the same mentality as well and try to push the government in that way, they will appreciate it. They may not catch on now, but would have made a statement as accountants.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much, Monica, for that elaboration. In the absence of the chair, I think we can conclude.
Sorry, my microphone was just muted. Sorry.
Okay.
I thought you were seeing me. Yeah, sorry about that. Sorry, the microphone was muted, but I was hearing everything that Monica said.
Good.
I just wanted to add that, first of all, maybe my apologies if we talked about private sector, maybe 99% of the time. That's where most of the members are, but certainly we also need to always be cognizant of the fact that there are a lot of accountants in government as well. Personally, I've spent a lot of my life supporting government. I was with government of Uganda. And recently, just up to last month, I was doing an assignment with the Minister of Finance, which was developing a capacity building strategy for government, especially those in financial, in the finance area. And one of the recommendations in our report, which I remember, I can now talk about it since it's already out, was that they should embrace the use of digital tools. Some of the training especially can reach local governments and people out there if it can be put on online platforms. And this is something we recommended, and I'm quite sure those in the public sector have a report which can be used now to advance that agenda of using digital capabilities to do some of the capacity building and training within government. And this can be done. And a lot already has been invested in these areas in previous projects. So it should be possible for government to do that. But of course, I must tell you that government is a big thing. If you talk about a primary teacher in a rural primary school, probably that will take a lot of time for that kind of capacity to reach there. But there's always somewhere to start, and we hope that government will continue pushing in that direction. So thank you very much. Ambrose, is there another question?
Chair, I think there are no more questions. I pray that you close the webinar. But before you close, on behalf of ICPAU, we want to thank you so much, CPA Dr. James Onyoin, for chairing the webinar on budgeting and budgetary control. We want also to thank our panelists, CPA Monica Kasirye Kavuma and CPA Anthony Kitongo Wamalugu. We thank you so much for supporting the profession, for educating the accountants regarding budgeting and budgetary control, and particularly in this pandemic crisis. Your knowledge shared is so good that we shall live to implement what you have shared with us. There are upcoming events. Next week we have IFRS updates. I've already shared the post on Wednesday at 2. We have IFRS updates. Endeavor to register and attend the same event. Then, very importantly, we have the annual general meeting for members on the 30th of July. You must have received the link on your email. Please register, read all the documents that have been provided to you so that you attend with an informed mind. Otherwise, I want to thank everyone and the participants for endeavoring to attend our webinars. After next week, we are happy to inform you that we shall be charging a small fee to cost share as the budget panelists were indicating. So we will be around with you, and please get prepared as we move forward. I thank you so much, Chair. May you close the webinar. Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you very much, Ambrose. This has been really, a good experience for me, and I'm sure my panelists. I want to say thank you so much to Anthony Kitongo. I also want to say thank you so much to Monica. I really appreciate your contributions. I appreciate the way you've held your role as conducted your role as panelists. It has been very, very insightful, very educative. I've personally learned a lot, and I'm sure that the members in the webinar have learned a lot. And I like the way you have explained things in a very simple manner. You didn't really have to be an accountant to follow what was being discussed. I'm sure a number of people who joined us who are not accountants were able to follow. And particularly, I like the way you were able to give us tips on what we need to be aware of, what we should emphasize, what we should prioritize as we continue to budget and to continually review our budgets, because now the budgets are very, very volatile. They keep moving all the time. So thank you for all those tips. Thank you for the encouragement on making sure we look after our people. We should have a growth mindset. We appreciate all that. That has been really, really insightful. I want to thank the Institute, the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Uganda for putting these seminars together, these webinars together. I've been attending so many of them. I've learned a lot. This COVID maybe has made me much more knowledgeable, and I believe it's the same to everyone. And I'm happy that you are going to continue with the webinars, although at a small cost, as you say. That is also understood. You have really carried it for quite some time. We appreciate that. So I want to say thank you so much to the Institute. I want to say thank you to people out there who are doing everything to make sure Ugandans are safe. I want to add my voice to say, please continue to wash your hands with the soap. Continue to be careful. Don't touch your soft parts of your body. And I pray that we go through this safely when we're all alive. Good enough so far, no deaths recorded. I pray that as Ugandans, we shall go through this and we shall come out victorious. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time, and I wish you the very best, and we meet again on Wednesday at 2 p.m. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir. Thank you.